There's lots to get to. Let's get to it. And I think that I've like undersold it. I think that there's more than that too in today's show, but I think that's always the case. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we're starting in Britain because, well, in Canada, they don't actually interview Canadian citizens about things of interest to Canadians. And so we end up hearing about how, and no joke, there's a tab later on today talking about how Canada must do more for immigrants. Right here, hold on. Here it is. Oh no. It's this one. Canada must better protect immigrants, refugees from foreign intimidation, report says. So that's the kind of news we get in Canada. But in the United Kingdom, they call up people from Canada and say, do you want to come on the show and tell us what's really going on about this? I heard million-person march. I hear that's news. So they pick it up. So here is a United Kingdom television show talking to a Canadian person, one of the organizers of the march, I think out Vancouver way. And she's talking about the SOGI education stuff, and you have to leave the country in order to get this kind of stuff. And soon, I'm sure they're going to just block it. They're going to say, you have to get Canadian content. You can't watch this British nonsense. Here we go.
Crept into an authoritarian...
Oh, hold on. That's too fast. All right, we'll try that.
Canada has kind of crept into an authoritarian way of thinking.
I think so. I mean, Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party sort of has run amok with their own agenda and is not engaging the population in their thoughts or concerns. And this happened way back in 2016 when Trudeau's Liberal Party presented Bill C-16, which was Canada's gender identity legislation. A few of us tried to push back. We were completely ignored and railroaded with this legislation, which became further policies, including things like SOGI, which is the curriculum that teaches kids of all ages in public schools across Canada about gender identity ideology. It teaches kids that every kid has a gender identity. It instructs teachers to ask every student about their pronouns in the classroom. And again, parents don't have any say and often don't again have any knowledge. So kids at school, for example, will decide that, now I'm a girl and now I want to be called Mary, and somewhere down the line, parents will find out and they haven't been informed, and it's quite dangerous.
It is. It's very, very dangerous what's going on. And it's even worse that unions are using time at work, time during the union time to plan counter protests, and then the plan is leaked. And I showed you the meeting yesterday. I mean, I didn't show you the meeting, but I showed you links to the meeting, and I did a minute by minute live tweet of the meeting if you're interested in just skimming what it was about. But after that meeting, which was attended by CUPE and OPSU and a whole bunch of other Ontario activist unions, the unions themselves came out publicly to articulate what was said in that meeting, which is there's no room for hate in Ontario, which is to say, if you oppose our SOGI initiative, if you oppose mutilating children, if you oppose cutting off healthy sex organs in order to facilitate aligning a body with a feeling, a mental health feeling, the disassociation of one's gender and all of that, gender dysphoria, et cetera, et cetera. If you think all of that is bad, that's hateful, according to them. So they've redefined hate and said, that's not welcome here in order to be palatable to people, in order to sell it. But they're communists, and they said so very clearly during their meetings. So here's the proof. Yesterday, I showed you the CUPE. Here's CUPE Ontario from yesterday, and it's got no space for hate. I showed you, it's 10 minutes into the meeting where they coined this phrase, okay? And CUPE Ontario has a whole big tweet talking about how they're going to counter-protest. OPSU is another one. Hate groups are organizing anti-alphabet soup rallies on September 20th. That's not true. That's not true. It's not anti-alphabet soup rallies. The rallies are to stop teaching this ideology in school. If you're gay or straight, that shouldn't matter when you're being taught the ABCs. It just should not. And so that's kind of generally what most parents agree with. And like, stay out of teaching our children about these tangential, almost religious things. Stop it, right? And even in Catholic schools, you can't go to Catholic school in Ontario anymore and expect to be given a Catholic education. You will be given SDGs and alphabet soup as the only sustenance, right? As the only thing to ingest for your mind, right? And that's antithetical, right? It's unbelievable. It is not Catholic. These ideologies are diametrically opposed. They don't line up, not even one little tiny bit. Derek Sloan is responding to this. He says, multiple unions are now organizing against a peaceful protest organized by concerned parents. They're also mislabeling these parents as hate groups. Espousing hate, however so defined, limits your rights under the Charter. Hate speech is not permitted even under the Charter. A protest designed to spread hate against an identifiable group is not permitted under the Charter. Labeling the protest as hate seems to be an attempt to discredit the protest and, if possible, even turn the legal climate against the protesters like this. If you can demonize, you can ostracize, and in this climate, even strip rights from people. It's intentional. Of course, this has nothing to do with improving the working conditions of the union members, which proves these unions are political action groups, not workers' rights unions. I would destroy the unions. And the way I would destroy the unions, you abolish the school board. If the jobs don't exist anymore, then the union doesn't exist anymore. Done. And you say parents can start their own schools. Each student has this much funding attached to them. If they have these issues with, certain caveats, like if the child has specific speech and language issues or specific difficulty with learning in certain situations, has an EA or has certain help or something to that effect, then they would have more, right? And busing, et cetera, could potentially be on the table depending on a whole bunch of other factors. But fundamentally, I think you could easily come up with a system that would give you more bang for your buck and much more control than the current system. And it would have the added benefit of taking down this ridiculous political action union, right? Jeepers creepers. I don't think I finished the whole OPSU tweet, so I'm going to reread the OPSU tweet. It says, hate groups are organizing against anti-alphabet soup rallies on September 20th, and we're coming together to say enough is enough. Stand up against hate. Find a local counter demo or organize your own. And then they've got a link to help people organize, which is, again, not surprising. They talked about that during the meeting, right? Here is the BC Federation of Labor, and they say, in the face of hate, BC's labor movement stands in solidarity with trans people. Our statement on the anti-trans rallies planned for Wednesday, September 20th. And so they've got a statement there as well. And the funny thing is, it's not anti-trans. It's not anti-trans people. It's not anti-LGBT Ramalama Ding Dong. It's not any of that stuff. It is anti having an ideology taught as fact, which is not fact, in schools. That's what this fundamentally is. It's a peaceful protest. But you know what else was a peaceful protest? The trucker protest. It was legal according to a judge because of the honking injunction. Continue your legal protest. All of those things were true, and they slammed the Emergencies Act down anyway. I hope I'm wrong in my prediction that they're going to try and frame these people as committing some kind of hate crime, as terrorists, just like they framed the truckers, just like they framed Adam Skelly, just like they framed anybody who stands up against this and gets a big turnout. Okay? And so it's very, very interesting. The face of hate. I think Derek Sloan is onto something with regards to the sloganization of this kind of stuff here. It's purposeful. Very, very purposeful. Right? So that's very concerning. Here's Thomas Sowell, and he had an interview with a YouTuber, and he's like older. He's getting on in age. I remember Colbert interviewing him back in 2008 when Colbert was actually decent, and he was old then. And now, he's very old, but he's very, very smart. If you don't know who this guy is, check out his work. Probably you'll agree with a lot of it because it's very common sense. And he's very smart. So here's Thomas Sowell talking about the trans stuff. Here we go.
I can't imagine how many young people in the elementary schools especially are saying that they are a boy but they want to be a girl, or they're a girl and want to be a boy. I can't think of anybody in my whole lifetime who was saying things like that. And if you follow the sort of institutional way these things are done, there are groups outside the school system and inside the school system who want to do this and who know that the parents don't want them to do it, and they do it anyway, and they pretend that they're responding to what the students want. They're not.
Of course they're not. It's like Munchausen's by proxy. The mother wants the attention, The mother wants oh, you have a trans child, you have a sick child, blah, 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 and people fawn over you, right? Oh. And then you have to keep the facade going or the attention goes away, right? If the child isn't like newly sick, then people stop paying attention to it, right? And so it's not done by the kids. I don't think. It's certainly a lot of influence from the family, not necessarily the parents, but the family. Odessa says, getting word that the people showing up to protest the parents' peaceful march on September 20th, that's the unions, are being informed to mask up so as to hide who they are, kind of like the Antifa creepy kids. Why would people who are proud of who they are and what they stand for need to mask up to hide their identities? Clown World Canada. And so the person who posted this blocked me. She's in Guelph, so I was blocked. And here's the poster. And it says, "No hate in Guelph. Meet at 8:30 a.m. on September 20th at 1 Carden, that's City Hall. The hate group is meeting for 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. with a walk after. Bring signs with positive messaging, lots of flags, and take up space. Masks are required. Limited free masks will be available. Protect each other and your identity. Create an accessible space. Be fragrance free. Bring water. Stay hydrated. Keep benches for people with physical needs. Bring seats if needed. Ignore counter protesters." They're the counter protesters. This is not their event, but they're trying to frame it as if it's their event and they're being counter protest by these other people. Ignore the counter protesters. They say security team Invest can help de-escalate for you. Contact admin to join the security team. We are here to show Guelph that there's no place here for hate. Don't take the bait and match aggression. And here is the ferryman's toll, and he intelligently connects where these tactics that are being put forward by union members who are also communist Antifa members, he finds this tactic is coming from the Antifa propaganda outlet, the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. We'll see something from them in a little while as well. And it says Ontario Federation of Labour Resources, and it says Guide for Pride Defenders. And part of that guide says some protests include whistles, horns, and other loud noisemakers. Bring earplugs for protection. If you bring noisemakers, bring earplugs to hand out to other attendees. Banners can block signs carried by protesters from the view of Pride attendees. Banners can block signs carried by protesters from the view of Pride attendees, as well as cameras preventing protesters and other disruptive parties from filming Pride attendees and defenders. Umbrellas are also useful for blocking hate protesters and easily moved or maneuvered. Masks can help keep us and our communities safer from COVID and other viral infections, and they also protect us from being identified by the far right. I think that's exactly the reason. And again, these guys say that in their brochure, right? Bring a mask, and so we can't be identified by the other people who are protesting. And it's funny because the other people protesting are parents. The other people protesting are, well, here's one of the other Million March organizers, Camille, and he's talking, and I'm going to play this whole thing because he's responding and upset about the union coordination and the organization of the counter protest. I'm ticked off that it's done using taxpayer dollars during work hours, right? Like, what the heck? There's no consequences for that. Here's Camille.
What I'm going to say to you right now, and I mean it, the battle has just begun, and if you dare to counter-protest, we will make note of that, and we will make sure that every Pride festival, every Pride event will be met with a counter-protest. We respected you. We respected your differences. We disagree with your lifestyle just like you disagree with ours. But remember, if you dare to counter-protest, we will consider that a threat. And my suggestion is that you stay home and you watch it all. Okay? Because this is a peaceful protest that has kids and their families, and they're coming to ask for the liberation of kids in the schools. Have you not seen Doug Ford acquiesce? You will acquiesce. I promise you that. And we will make sure our legal team, which is going to be the biggest legal team in Canada, robs you of every penny you have. So again, if you dare to counter-protest, we will counter-protest every activity you do moving forward. Wednesday, September 20th, 2023, at 9 a.m. from coast to coast, millions of people will be coming down. It's Christians, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, Sikhs, you name it. It's whites, it's Hispanics, it's Middle Eastern, it's Arabs. They're coming down and they're very angry and they lost their patience, but they're peaceful. Let's make sure that you celebrate us like you forced the celebration on us, okay? You guys had Pride Day, Pride Week, Pride Season, and Pride Year. You have pride flags everywhere. We're looking to put the Canadian flag everywhere and celebrate as Canadians and uphold the Constitution as our government failed us, and we will hold you guys and the government accountable. Look into my eyes. I promise you that.
So he's upset. Understandably so. Here's an example of indoctrination. This is a school in BC, and it's geared towards kindergarten to grade 3, and it's an ABCs book, the ABCs of gender ideology. I'm not kidding. Here we go.
K to 3, you got the basics, bigender,
C,
cisgender,
D,
demigender. What the fuck is that?
E,
Androgender,
F,
fluid, horgogender, intersex, jerks. What is that one? I can't even pronounce that.
Libra gender. And then it goes through the rest of the alphabet with all sorts of pangender. There are ridiculous terms. Gender questioning. This is grooming, by the way. Certainly 100% inappropriate. Here is another ridiculous situation. CBC News published this 4 hours ago this morning. Trans teen and youth say gender affirming care is, quote, life-changing. Yeah, bet it is. So why is it so hard to find in Canada? Is it hard to find? I don't think it's hard to find in Canada. Crow Hayden Kane was in grade 8 when a worksheet handed out during class asked students to consider how they would describe their gender. It was the first time it occurred to Crow that girl didn't actually fit how he felt. Over the next few years, he began using the pronouns they and them. In grade 10, he came out as trans. His pronouns are he and they. Immediately, it was like something clicked, said Hayden K., who is now 18 and lives with his parents and siblings in Ponoka. I'm getting that probably wrong. Central Alberta, town of 7,300 people. At 16, he asked his mom to make an appointment with their longtime family doctor so he could get a referral to a gender clinic. He wanted to start exploring the possibility of hormone replacement therapy. But during the telephone appointment, the family doctor began asking questions that Crow felt were inappropriate. Quote, what if I wanted to get pregnant someday? Totally unrelated, right? What if I had a husband someday? Not related at all, he said. I think he asked me, what if you want to keep your boobs? A week later, a staff member from the doctor's office called back and said the physician was also recommending that Hayden K. Crow read a book that discouraged transitioning. A referral was all that we wanted, and then it would be out of his hands. He refused to do that for us. Sounds like a good doctor, to be honest with you. So these kind of, like, if you have a child who is groomed by the school through worksheets and things like that to make these suggestions, and you have an outcome like that, if that was done privately in the 90s, you would have had a case that this person was doing damage, was abusive, right? And at this point, people are saying, we have to use government resources to organize the counter-protest. That's scary. It's scary, man. CTV News. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful